Welcome, thanks for joining us. Today we're checking out the all-new CAD drawing software from Strata. Now before we start, just a quick reminder, there's an activation key that needs to be on your computer to start. So you've downloaded the program, but there will be a small coloured flash drive that needs to be positioned in your USB drive. Once we have that, we're ready to go. Now one of the first things to be aware of is there's a center point in your screen. So if we look at the 2 0 locators, try and put your drawing in the center of these locators. If it's not there and you've started something that's off to the side, what can happen is when you put it into your CNC cutter, it zooms off to the side thinking it needs to shift maybe 300 mils before it starts cutting the object. So again, put it in the center. If you've started and you need to shift it, just simply click on it and you'll be able to drag it around the screen. Another neat thing about this program is it uses many of the Windows shortcuts, like Control Z for undo, Control C for cut, Control V for paste. Another one I use a lot is Control A, which highlights everything on the screen. You can zoom in on your object by using the center scroll button on your mouse and scroll back out again. I can click on my shape and move it about the screen if I need to. Another thing I can do is hold down that scroll button and you can slide your way around the screen. You may not need to do that very often, but sometimes you'll knock a button and you'll think, heck, how did that happen? Hold down that center scroll button and slide back into position. Before we get into drawing, let's talk about the functions within this program. So we have drawing, which is straightforward. We have our rectangles and circles and lines. Sure. We also have nesting, which is multiplying our shapes and selecting where on the sheet of steel we would like that machine to cut them out from. There's multiple different programs out there for drawing. There's different programs out there for nesting. Yes, it's fine to draw on one program, import it into your Strata CNC program, nest it from there, or vice versa, whichever works best for you. So let's get into drawing. I'm going to select the rectangle, click again, and I've got a shape on the screen. Sure, I haven't selected the dimensions for that shape yet, and I'm going to do that now. So I click on my rectangle, come up to size, and one thing I'm going to point out here in the middle of the size screen is this little key, or lock, sorry. You see, for a rectangle, it's pre-selecting the dimension for the other side. I don't want it to do that. I want my shape to be 200 by 100. And now I've done that. So the next thing I'm going to do is select the circle. And it's not in the center, obviously. So I'm going to click on that and I'm going to drag it roughly to the center. Now I can either hit Control A. Sorry, that was Control Z. Let's do that again. Control A to highlight all, or I can drag across the top of it, holding the left-hand button down. Whichever way, we're going to highlight it. And I'm going to come up the top here to this transform function. I've got one here that says align, center align, and it bangs it right in the center. Cool. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put some fillets on the corners. So click on that. You can choose whatever radius you want. We'll leave it at 20 mil. Simply click on the corner I want the radius on. And it's good. So if we want to change the angle of our shape, we can highlight it by Control A, transform, rotation, click a spot on the screen where we want that shape to rotate from. And here we can change our angle. Once I've finished in shape or mode, if I right click on my mouse, it gets us out of that. Now the next thing I need to do is tell my machine where I want my pierce points. So up until now it doesn't know whether I want it to pierce from this side or the outside or the inside. So over here we have lead lines, and we can tell it that I want a 3 mm lead line coming in on an angle or an arc, whatever you want. What I would say is the thicker your material, so if you're dealing with 16mm plate, you might want a 10mm lead line, or again, if you're dealing with 2mm plate, you might only need a 3mm lead line. So the thicker the plate, the thicker the lead line. The other way you can do it is manually add these by clicking on here. I'm going to zoom in on my object using the center scroll button and click left again. Same again on that side. And I've manually added 2 different lead lines. Again, right click to get out of that mode. From here, I'm going to come up to something called Simulate. So Simulate is going to show us the cut path where our machine's starting and when it's finishing. Now, obviously, this is a pretty straightforward shape. Some shapes are going to be a bit trickier than this, and the machine might get confused as to where to start and stop. It might come over and cut this corner, then jump over and cut this corner, then do the circle, then come up and cut this corner. There's a way to stop that, and what you can do is you can highlight the bit you want, or you can highlight the whole thing, and come over here to optimize. Now, generally selecting any of these will solve your problem. Again, we can click on Simulate to make sure that any inconsistencies are gone. If that optimize function doesn't work, there's another step here that you can take that is a bit more detailed, and there's various different options you can choose. You can't go too far wrong in here. Click some buttons and see if it works. So we're happy with our shape. We know it's starting and finishing in the right place. From here, we can click out of our simulation. Now, the next thing I'm going to show you is by clicking the OK button up here. It's now saved my shape as a part number. Now, if you close out of the program and you haven't saved it somewhere on a USB, this may disappear, but while our program's open, we can save multiple different parts down the side. It's always a good idea to save onto USB and make sure you've got it permanently for the future. To get back into our shape, we simply click on it. So once I've got my shape, I'm ready to start thinking about multiplying it on a sheet. So again, I can go Control A, Control C, Control V, and manually do copies. But I'm not going to do that. I'll go Control Z and get rid of that. I'm going to use what we call an array up here. So this is set for 3 columns, 3 rows and 3 columns, and we have a row offset and a column offset. So to set this, we need to think about the width of our shape and the height of our shape. Once you have that sussed, we have multiple shapes on the same sheet. Now, sure, we could reduce the space down in here. Every bit of steel counts. It's all dollars in the bank. But I'll let you fine tune that yourself on the shapes you're using. Essentially from here, we're ready to go. We can either simulate it again, or we can go to save, put it onto a flash drive and import it into our machine.